Let's get started, everybody. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate everybody for being here. This is fantastic for our first quarterly meeting. So super excited to do this. I hope it's helpful to everyone. We're here for you guys, most of all. So, we want to hear all your feedback. We're going to keep this super informal. So if you have questions anytime during my brief presentation, please interrupt and let me know, and we'll try to get you some answers. But cool. So let's go ahead and start with Park. So thank you all for joining. It's fantastic. I'm sure we all want to hear more about your amazing parks and all the incredible work that you folks have done in there. We couldn't do it without you. Truly, you're a gift to the Parks Department. Okay, let's move on to the kind of the meat of the presentation. So right now we currently have 32 friends groups registered for DeKalb 2025. Registration is currently open. So if you know anyone, please let them know. Get in there, register. When does that close? Yeah, so time is of the essence there. But considering we have 114 parks in the Parks Department, there's, fully underrepresented compared to the parks that we have and the friends groups that are currently registered. Yep.
So there's 114 unincorporated parks?
Correct. Yeah. Not all of those are eligible for friends groups, but most of them are.
Is the park or just classified separately page? No, it's a park. Okay.
Yep.
It started in Detroit. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just for context, some of the amazing work that you folks have done last year, we had over 3,400 volunteer hours, spanning over 102 separate volunteer projects. That was 19 parks represented, give or take. And so as you can see, there's some groups that are currently registered that aren't exactly active either. And some of those workday projects that we've done are beautification projects, as you all know, keeping the park nice, beautiful plantings, picking up trash, beautification projects. Ecological is kind of more of our invasive species management that goes on. A lot of volunteer projects deal with that, and obviously park cleanups. So as far as kind of the line of communication goes, we're so excited to have Lauren representing DeKalb for us, and she's really going to be the first point of contact for the friends groups, and she should be who you contact first, and she will relay any other project that you guys propose to us, which we'll review internally. And it will go through our internal review process and then go to our director, Chuck Ellis, for final approval. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we're recording this as well, so I'm happy to share the recording with you.
Wanted to have them
Yeah.
so we can actually publish it and then everybody. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have my contact information, most of you probably do. I mean, we'll share all of this with you. And Lauren, feel free to give it to anyone who asks. Fantastic. And so as a friends group, what really are the key goals of a friends group? And I know when you guys first sign up and you look at the Park Pride Toolkit, some of these are going to be redundant from that. I mean, we basically pulled out these goals from the Park Pride Toolkit. But really what we're trying to do is get community representation, right? We really want to make sure that these groups represent everyone in the community and make sure that you're getting those diverse perspectives on the park. Those are obviously going to be long-term residents, newer residents, various age groups, and various demographics. We also want to see a lot of outreach and inclusion, engaging underrepresented groups that may or may not be able to be involved in everything. Reach out to those folks, let them know what you guys are doing. And we want to track, active participation levels, making sure that these groups are staying active. Like I said, we had 19 parks that were represented last year, but we have over 34 registered park groups. So some groups are not as active as others, which is fine. But it'd be fantastic if we can activate them a little more. So key goals. How can we do that? How can you impact your community and really make a difference? Let's look at our SMART algorithm. Specific goals, clearly define what the group aims to achieve. What do you really want to do as a group? What are you trying to do to enhance the park and the community that you're involved with? Make sure those goals are measurable. How many volunteer programs are you doing? Are you tracking your hours appropriately? Making sure that your efforts are being captured. And assignable, making sure everyone's responsible that's part of the friends group for something, making sure that's inclusive and everyone's involved in executing all those goals. And then of course, let's make them realistic. We want to have realistic goals. If you can't reach the goals, there's no point in pursuing them. So make sure they're achievable and within the available resources that you have that the county can provide and the Park Pride provides. And set deadlines. I know things move slow for us sometimes, but they do for everyone involved. So I think it's good to set short-term goals, set long-term goals, meet them in the middle, because you want to keep momentum going, but you definitely want to have time-related goals that can be tracked and followed. So we put together just some suggested metrics for what we think are good ways to keep track of what you're doing. Events and programs. We're thinking if you can organize at least 2 park activation events annually. Doing any kind of thing, cleanup, educational workshops, community gatherings. That's a good place to start. Something we want to do. I mean, we want to see the groups are active, and that's going to help us determine what projects we want to move forward with as well. Engage your volunteer efforts. I mean, Park Pride is a fantastic resource for that. They can put you in touch with all kinds of volunteers to help you achieve your goals. Holding at least 3 volunteer work days per year, documenting the attendance impact that you're having is incredibly helpful, not just to us, but to Park Pride as well. And reach out to new members. Communities change. They don't stay the same. Everybody knows that. I think it's important to stay tuned in to who's in your community, who wants to be involved. Make sure that's happening on a regular basis.
I love these.
Fantastic. And then for those of you that haven't seen the beautification form, the workday form, this is how we can track that. This is how we as an organization, as a department, can look at your projects and vet them, how we can keep track of it, how Park Pride can keep track of how active your park's being in your group. So really, this is your first line. When we talked about communication earlier, this is the first thing to do. Go to the website, get this for any workday, any project you want to do, fill this out, send it to Lauren. Lauren will vet it through our internal process, and we will get back to you. And we're here to help you. So if you have any questions along the way of how to fill this out, I mean, my door's open, my phone's always on. You can always call me. Lauren's the same. Paige is mostly the same. No, I'm kidding. She's there too to help everybody. I'm kidding. Yeah. No, but I mean, the moral is that we're all here to help you. And that's what we want to do. We want you to be successful. We want the projects to be successful. And this is how we can do it. And track that. We can show that we are making progress, that the groups are staying active and being actively trying to reach those goals that we just discussed. So I mean, that was really the meat of the presentation. We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the topics we want to discuss in the next meetings. For the second meeting, we kind of already have dates for these as well. So please make a note of this, and we'll share this presentation so you have them. We'll be sending out reminders for the upcoming quarterly meetings. But for the second meeting, we really wanted to look at operational guidelines, how the parks function, how we maintain them, what our best practices are, how to reach us if you need any kind of maintenance issues. We get a lot of questions about Porta-John requests and how to get those if you have any bigger events at the park. So we wanted to talk about that, and then we wanted to talk about overall winterization of the parks, de-winterizing parks, and how that impacts your space in your park at the second meeting. In the third meeting, we really want to focus down on grants, funding opportunities. If you have a bigger project, how can you fund that? Where can we find resources to help you do those larger scale projects? There's all different ways to approach that. Park Pride has resources, we have resources, and we can help guide you with some of that. So we definitely want to focus on that for the third meeting. Yep.
Meeting number 2, when y'all were sending out information about that Porta-John request, what kind of Porta-John we y'all be talking about? But I hope when you send out more detail, it would include that, because we know your different kind of Porta-John. On meeting number 3, this was something I was going to ask regardless, and I wonder if it can be added. So at Sugar Creek, we're looking to add new tennis courts and new pickleball courts. We need pickleball running from tennis courts at Sugar Creek. And for various reasons, not because we're being mean, but there are reasons for them. And we received some funding from Commissioner Johnson, if y'all know. Yeah. And so we had people actually thinking we were going to get tennis courts this year. Now, of course, I know better. But Paige was very helpful in explaining the process to me, because initially people couldn't understand. We got the money, I thought we can't get it by the end of the year. The way Paige explained it to me, and when I went back and explained it to our group, that was really like, oh, okay, now I understand, okay, because I'm like, we're not getting tennis courts for at least 2, 3 years, that's just too many factors that have to go on. And so I think that would be helpful as well, because if all y'all are talking to people, when you're telling them you can't get something, being able to explain to our folks how the process actually works for DeKalb County, once you even ask for basic water coolers, remember that today? Yes, I do.
We can absolutely, I think that's a fantastic point.
Then that'd be a perfect way to explain, because we go back and talk to other people and try and explain, it's not just about getting money, it's how you started, the committee as a whole, some of the committee, I can never remember. And then the commission. I think that would be very helpful to include.
It's honestly, there's two main reasons why we did this. The first one is hiring Caleb, and I know I'm a little late to the game on it, but hiring Caleb to have, he'll have more of a connection to the department. I know his time the last year has been spent on the comprehensive trails plan. So now that that's getting wrapped up, that's what interests us. We know this was much needed. So that's why we're here. But the second reason is fully attached to funding and grants for us, because I know the bond money is for the most part gone, and SLOSS 1 is rounding down. And I know as there's still continued projects, there's still deferred maintenance, there's still things that have been on y'all's list, my list for decades. And so how do we leverage Park Price dollars knowing that the matches are going to be so much more challenging? So that was kind of the other impetus for starting these meetings and working with you guys, you know, reactivating groups, because so many of you guys even exceed these sort of minimal goals, right? I mean, y'all, some 2 work days, I mean, you're surpassing that. So how can we take more in kind, leveraging the small amount of dollars we have, having that conversation about how do funds work, thresholds, procurement, permitting, board meetings, right? And getting that all together. So that's sort of the main goal. We started with the operational guidelines just because that's kind of the base, because Caleb's like, are you really sure you want to put the grant meeting second? Because these are quarterly.
Yeah.
But all of those things are building to get us to the big dollars, because y'all's parks are aging, the infrastructure is failing. There's only so much money, right? So how can we all work together? And you have no idea how much I appreciate all of you mentioning projects we have completed, and then also knowing realistically the timeline, because I think each of you have experienced, you know, that process is more than 6 months. We wrapped up the other week. We're redoing the courts at NH Scott Park, the basketball and tennis. We had a citizen call. She's like, I know somebody that can get those courts done in 2 weeks. I was like, give me their phone number. You know, so I think that you're right, that realism, that check about, and again, we want to be good stewards of the funds as well. And that's why all those checks and balances are there at the end of the day. I think y'all have recognized that. We want to make sure that we're spending it, that everybody's aware of how we're spending it and all that. So yes, we're going to be highlighting that as the whole, and if we need to even pause, and we can have a whole project management on more than you ever wanted to know, but I am an open book on how our process works, and getting in there. So, you know, and I think, like, so I think the reflection of the successes we've had in the last, you know, 6, 7 years, I think show that it's us all coming together, having that master plan and creating those SMART goals, you know, to get us to where we want to be.
And instead of like explaining how we manage a project and that the whole, you know, history behind how those work, I mean, maybe it's better if we can bring like an example and walk through a whole example. Yeah, that's taken X amount of time. That would be helpful. Yeah.
I know that when we went through our visioning process, Terry Knight, who was our landscape project manager, she said like it may take years for you to see this vision come through. But I think adding the context around because funding, because once you have funding, because we did get an allocation from our commissioner right after that was complete, there were permits and there were licenses and then RFP process and it, like, so I mean it takes a lot. And you know, some of us know that and can trickle that down to our friends, but it might be helpful in like the visioning process meetings or.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Different avenues for that kind of relay that information. Yeah, for sure.
Also important is having friends group members who can say the course, so that as people phase out, there's people who have been there who can say, well, I'm still here, you know, having that, I guess that's
like a transition. Yeah.
There is a master plan. So the master plan comes with phase costs. And we can walk you through. It's the same process if it's in the other friends. So we have that master plan, but that's always the jumping off point, is getting that master plan, getting it, you know, vetted through the community, and then we can help you set phasing in order to develop it. So the process itself is the same.
Just wanted to ask, how do you prioritize in regard to passive or active parks?
The master plan and the community.
But I mean, is there, tell me more about that, because I don't really understand so much how it's done to just make the decision.
Well, for instance, we always advocate for parks to, engage their community and then come to us to formulate a master plan. That can be done through the department or it can be done through Park Pride's visioning program too. But it really does. That's how the focus for the park comes to fruition and really get the vision of the entire community down on a piece of paper. Like, do you want a playground or tennis courts? Do you want it to be just a nature park? Right, which would be what we would consider a passive, green space park or something along those lines. But that's really where that vision comes from, and how the department sees the space for the future.
So part of the visioning process, what we went through was we created survey questions, we distributed the
Mhm.
surveys to our neighborhood. We had like town hall meetings where people came and provided feedback, and we had like concepts where it's like, no, we don't want a swing set here, we want a park bench, and people drew on maps and did all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it a whole nother series on master planning and walk you through that
We have
process,
to
which
do that too for other parks.
Yeah.
Too, that they organize.
See,
Yeah.
for us. Processes put in place in terms of the visioning and. Set up, how many people put that type of thing, it was. Separate design, it was me taking it to the HOA meetings of the churches and getting their input, and it was spirit class.
Mm.
Now they've got these wonderful processes in place that you can take advantage of. I come to the meetings just to kind of see too, even though it might not be in my area or the park, but I think it's great to know what people are expecting for their areas, because sometimes that is a great idea.
Yeah, and that's another reason we want to get everyone together so you can share ideas between each other. Because if you have an idea, I can guarantee you another park has come close to doing something similar.
And it's not everything all at once. For example, I was at one meeting and the older guys were saying, well, what's in it for us? I said, what do you want? Well, to play chess and checkers in the park. I said, we can't do that right now, but 5 years, we'll act on it. And that's when got the input and the feedback and all the rest. We got no grand opening and all that. So you're not gonna do everything at one time, but you can set realistic expectations. And those were just tables. That's not what Erica's talking about in terms of the tennis courts, the pickleball. I mean, that's multiple years. We're talking about tables, just tables. We couldn't do it all at one time. We're realistic.
Well, that was the one thing I was gonna add, is
Mhm.
if you refer back to our comprehensive parks plan, it identifies our called like gap areas. So there are metrics that we use that you wanna have so much natural space, there's a metric of how many basketball courts for citizen tennis courts, playgrounds. So we try to tick all those boxes as well. So NRPA has metrics that we use, that's part of the comprehensive plan. It also shows deficit areas like gap areas where we need more parks. Because there's a metric like a recreation center should be within so many miles, and there should be a pool with it. So those are also we also take into consideration the location. When we do a master plan revisioning, you're looking at what's in like a 1 mile radius, right? Because you don't need all 10 parks in that mile to all have soccer fields. You want a variety. But that's what usually we rely on the community and the surveys to help sort of drive that vision, that
And I
master
was
plan.
thinking about existing parks, because I was thinking about Arabia, where it's a lot of passive stuff, but they do have events out there. And that's what I was thinking, could that be designated as a dual activity park, or they just classified one or the other?
So Arabia is even more so, it's considered a regional park because it offers amenities that you cannot find anywhere else in Georgia. So that's a very, very specialized case. So you have regional parks, community parks, and maybe we need to add this to one of the things.
Yeah, neighborhood parks.
Neighborhood
I
parks,
think
there's
it's fantastic.
been
Yeah.
some, it's like Sugar Creek doesn't have any bit of difference. So that was kind of, it's still part of our inventory, but they're classified. And we had to, it's still in my brain, we have to, and then every year, part of CAPRA, we have to update that metric. We have to update how many playgrounds and how many pools. And so that's just part of who we are as a department. I would be more than happy to go through, because there's also like a mini park. If it's, like some of those District 2 parks, like Emory Grove and Princeton, those are considered mini parks. They're less than half an acre. They're within subdivision. So yes, all of that plays in. It's also how we rate, maybe we need to add this too. It's also how we rate, like when people nominate our properties. It's how is this a good fit for this area? Then we can look back, it's in a deficit area, whatever. So all of those are taken into consideration when we're building the park system as a whole. Yeah, there's a lot to it. And that's a whole different conversation from even at Capitol.
We're gonna need more than quarterly meetings.
All of that into
Mhm.
consideration.
And I want to apologize because I was the one that threw out the park. I didn't mean it. I didn't even know that there was
Yeah.
a terminology thing.
There is,
going on.
yeah.
No, it's good you brought that up. Yeah.
And I was simply saying that typically in the area that we live in, people come to the park and they sit in the in the pavilion and they'll drink or they'll listen to music. To me, that's passive. So we want, you know what I mean? So our thought was
Yeah.
in the park, so that, you know, we have a reading initiative in the park with the children's book box and story walk and all the rest of it. Got the tennis pickleball initiative. And so, you know, we live in an area where, as far as the county is concerned, it's the highest blood pressure, the highest kidney disease, the highest cholesterol, the highest, everything's the highest. So we want active participation, not passive participation. That was all I was saying. I didn't want
You're
to
fine.
bring up something that,
No, it's great when your comment sparks conversation. So I
Exactly.
actually think that's wonderful. Yeah.
Caleb, this is Barbara Mobley. Would you ask the speakers to please identify themselves so we'll have an idea who's speaking, who's talking?
Absolutely, Barbara. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
hi Barbara, that was Rochelle.
Okay, I thought. Thank you.
Apologize. I did get a question. We're not able to run the presentation and show the gallery.
I know.
So they don't get to see our,
We'll have it dialed in next time.
so I do apologize. But again, it is being recorded. Well, I guess just that part's being recorded. So I take that back.
Mhm.
That might be another topic too. You know, Barbara was successful in getting the Shoal Creek 3 renamed to John Evans.
Yep.
And that whole process.
Mhm.
I think that would be interesting to the participants if for some reason the name no longer had the value because the community has changed so much.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
Just talk about.
Let me get through this because I did want to ask everyone's opinion on the topics at the end, but we're there. We're getting there. That's fine. We did want to focus one meeting on safety and security of our parks and you know who the appropriate contacts are. If you have any problems, obviously there's a whole host of challenges, concerns that vary from park to park. So we kind of wanted to have a broader discussion on how you folks think we can improve that, how we handle it at the moment. And hope that, you know, we were also thinking we can talk about homelessness and the unhoused in the parks at the moment. And then we wanted to gauge everyone's interest on park tours. We tried to do park tours a little while ago, and didn't get too much interest, but we really wanted to show off what everyone's been doing. Let you see what's possible in some of the parks, what some of the groups are doing. So we wanted to see if anyone was still interested in us doing those, you know, annually or even more often.
And I think that, I mean, that's kind of what y'all are highlighting here.
Correct, yeah.
And then that's where we can showcase you all the hard work you went, and then there's a visual. And I know they used to do those years ago. I know COVID kind of, but we really would like to get back to those because we really do think that's the best way. And for y'all to connect, like when anybody wants to do a playground, I send them to the parks that have the playgrounds. It's what do you like? What don't you like? And so for us, it's wildly beneficial for you guys to see what the park improvements are. And then I think it really helps define those goals. So that's kind of tying everything together. That's kind of where we were gonna head. So.
Well, Gwen and I were going to have a District 7 meeting like this. And so the good news is that offering this, but one of the ideas that we had come up with was creating a profile for each participating park that shows what kinds of things are in the park. You know, maybe a couple key features.
Yeah, it's a fantastic idea.
We had a few focus projects, Eagle Scout projects, and how do you go about doing that, and you know what's involved in that process. I mean, I think that the parks that have had Eagle Scouts and how they recognize the scout leader and things like that. I think that there's each, you know, based upon profile we were going to put together. So I said, well, instead of us doing the work in advance, when we have the session, why don't we create the profile and give them like 10, 15 minutes and fill it out. And then we'll bring them all together and then we can publish it the next time we got together, even before that, send it online. But the other one table with we have a new District 7 commissioner. So we were gonna have a round table with her because we were gonna be District 7. And to allow people to get to know her, ask her various questions, get her opinion on, you know, parks and her positioning. You know what I mean? And get to know the people that are doing things in her space. So I know that we're crossing, you're in 6, right? We're crossing 6 and 7 here. So that might not be appropriate, but maybe in some ways it is. If maybe it's an extra session where you do something that for the.
Yeah,
They may not be involved with the commissioners otherwise, I don't know.
I think our intent for these meetings was just to kind of reconnect with departments. Because adding elected officials, it does create a different layer.
Say your name.
Oh,
That's-
I
That's
think,
Paige.
Paige, yeah. So we just like, this was for us to get back to y'all what your needs and wants are. So, and we can talk about more, if we want to have that layer, like, let me just think about how that, because it does bring, it's just a different, it's just
Yeah,
a
I wouldn't
different.
bring it
approach.
into like this.
Okay,
kind of
yeah, but I
subject.
think, I mean, obviously you want to, especially the new commissioners, I mean, that's a great resource. And that's the other thing is maybe if the District 7, you can bring some of your successes and then maybe District 6, I think that's how we're seeing this meeting is for y'all to connect together on what y'all are finding beneficial and just letting us know how we
Yeah.
can uplift that too.
Yeah.
So I think coming from both sides.
I have another question. Our park is partly in unincorporated DeKalb County and partly in city of Decatur. And so it's kind of confusing to us since we're a self-generated group that just started living there. Sometimes when you think about getting a grant or also I was thinking about Legacy Park being nearby and they have soccer fields. But would that count as something that we wouldn't want to have particularly? Or is it because it sits in the city of Decatur and is really not open to the general public around the park? So I just was curious if you had any guidelines or observations you could help us with when we're dealing with that problem of the park being a unified piece of land, but it's governed by two different entities.
Yeah, Dearborn's unique.
The Friends of Dearborn Park and any of that
But-
community do a visioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
That part, because of the additions through the years, has been, it's tricky. So a visioning to me is an absolute first step. And then City of Decatur would be a stakeholder, what we would call the stakeholder and as part of the visioning process. So another part of the metric is looking outside what's right across from you, be it in a city or even another county. So our Parks Master Plan is comprehensive and it's sort of regional, making that connection. So we actually count, and like the number of LA fitness stations. I mean, it goes to that length, so that answers, but getting a visioning to me is very key because then City of Decatur would be a stakeholder, so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, yeah.
Could you explain a little more about what it is, what an vision is?
Sure. So Park Pride offers visionings, and basically you create a steering committee that has representation from all demographics. And then there's usually 3-4 meetings where they meet with the group, identify amenities, they do the surveys, the mailers, they gather all of that feedback. And then they present 2 different concepts for the park, and then the stakeholder steering committee department all kind of weigh in, and then we adopt the final plan. So that's a vision.
They are the landscape design architects. The people that are working with the groups on steering committees are landscape architects.
That is also a grant, right? That's not a given. To do.
You to apply to a vision.
You have to apply
It be
for
for
it.
You have to apply for it.
2026 is the next time.
If you guys could just, for the people that are.
This is Lauren.
Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Buckley.
City Behind Cloud, 2024 was a big one. For 26.
Yeah, we're happy to let you know when that process opens.
Land is quite different, I mean, I think the city of Decatur is much smaller than what's the DeKalb portion.
But they look at the park as a whole, right? They're looking at the park as a whole, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and then to answer because the other question was sort of about funding. So if you wanted to seek a project, that's where we know, okay, this is something jointly, and then we could approach City of Decatur to maybe work with them since you sort of literally crossed the boundary.
Right.
Or if it's just on the DeKalb County side, then it would just be, now if it's something just on the city, because there is a section of your property that's fully City of Decatur, we would encourage you to go to them. I hate to say, but
For sure.
that's the point, I think, of the visioning is just for us and for City of Decatur to know, and then that way we can support your project better. It kind of goes back to just the process of how the funds. Yeah. And I thought were we gonna add a visioning master plan to one of these, or did we run out of quarterly meetings? We ran out of
We ran out of quarterly meetings. That's the, they're expanding, but.
several parks that, like
Mhm.
Glenn's was one, and the Harrison, the visioning, I think, is from like 1986 or something
So it's-
ridiculous.
yeah, it's
They're
due,
really
I
only
think.
good for 10 years. I know funnily enough, it takes us 50 years to fund it, but the demographics change so much that, I know, right?
Yeah.
They have the land provision.
But we do encourage update every 10 years, ideally. And then that way it just helps us, know, so.
Mhm.
So maybe that's the question for the first quarter of 2026.
Yeah,
That's our
yeah.
next meeting.
Sorry to ask
Caleb,
that.
this is Barbara. I have a question.
Yeah, go
Is
ahead, Barbara.
Is DeKalb County actively doing anything to get us off the bad list with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources? Because there are great amounts of funding available for trails and other things, but it's my understanding that DeKalb County is not being considered and will not be funded. Is the county doing anything to get us off that list?
Yes, we are. This is Paige. We are.
This session?
I'm sorry?
You think it'll happen this session?
Uh. When you say session, what is that? Give me like a timeline.
Legislative session,
Legislative.
For,
state legislative session.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
You serious? The Georgia General Assembly convenes the second Monday of every January, and they're there now. Sometimes they meet every day of the 40-day session, and sometimes
Yeah, but
they don't.
I don't think we operate. Yeah, we're not the states, so we're operating with them independently to try to resolve the situation. We can do that outside of the legislative session.
Yes, I understand that, but that's where the funding, I mean, the opportunity to ask for money of our state legislators happens during the legislative session. That's the reason I asked. She said she was working on it, and I was asked, was it during this session? Because
Well,
if so, perhaps we could ask for some money during this session if that has been completed. That's the only thing I'm asking.
Okay, the DNR grants that I'm aware of are not part of that legislative session. The DNR grants, it's a grant, so it comes from the Office of Planning and Budget Office. That's not part of the legislative session. I don't know what this year's schedule is for those DNR grants. I would have to look into that in order to answer your question more accurately. But as far as I know, I've never heard of the DNR grants being presented at the Georgia legislative session.
It's a part of the budget, though. That's the point. It's a part of the budget. So to get the money in the budget for a project that we could go to our state legislators and ask for funding for our parks, that's the only reason I put it in perspective with the legislative session, because the budget comes from the session. The funding comes from the session.
Yeah, but the grant is what we are ineligible for. So how the grant and the legislative session are connected, I don't know that. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about something I don't know anything about. So
Okay.
let me look at the grant deadline and that time, and then I can so I can answer you more accurately.
Okay, the grant deadline for trails was in November of last year. I'm talking about moving forward. As a former state legislator, I know what the process is, and that's why I put it in context, because the funding of the budget for the whole state is decided during the legislative session. That's why it's important. But thanks anyway.
I'm sorry, I don't have any more information at this time then to provide.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Naturalist Tasha. I have a question. So we're on a list that says at this time
You're ineligible.
we're ineligible to get any grants from the
State,
DNR
yep.
until further notice.
Yes, yes.
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah.
And we're working on meeting those.
Yes,
plans.
that's correct. Yes.
And is there a list of things that you have to check off?
Yes.
Okay, and how far are we on it?
So there's two big things. So one of them has been submitted and is under review. The second one is illegal.
Okay.
I'm Martha. I was wondering, in this process of visioning, do you ever find a lot of difficulty in getting the community to come to a consensus? And
Yes, oftentimes.
how much input do you have in what the final result is?
So we give our opinions based on our expertise, but we try not to guide them too much. We want it to be a community-driven plan. We'll say if something can't be put in there, we'll say that. Like, no, you can't, because of the park's designation or whatever, you can't have a restroom there or something, along those lines, or there's not enough space for a dog park. So we'll give that kind of advice, but for the most part, we're not trying to steer people's decisions one way or another.
Everything is fair game.
Yeah,
It's one of those, there's no crazy question.
we want it to come from the
We want it
community.
to come, but there are, what was I gonna say? We want to make sure it's coming from the community. That's the most important thing. So if the unanimous goes way, even if we might think something totally different, we're gonna go with the majority.
Yep.
So that is typically our rule of thumb. And if we see things in there that maybe only one person said, and we've had that happen.
Yeah.
We're like, wait a minute, that's not a community voice coming through. So we look at it as, it's a community, and that's why the steering committee, the visioning process, we love so much. Because the steering committee is a dedicated body that's representative of the community. And the visioning team, Andrew and his team, ensure that it's really a very elegant process, how they do it, because it gives everybody a voice and it's a dedicated group, that represents the steering committee.
How do you reach folks to invite them to this? Like, how do you go about reaching out to make sure or to encourage diversity in the steering committee?
Great question.
I was gonna actually, Christina,
It's,
An info session and somebody, the person who like wanted to start our friends group put flyers on everyone's mailboxes. And then there was an info session in the park where they said, this is what Park Pride is, this is what the friends group is, we would like to start this. And we've applied for a visioning, and if you're interested in continuing, so like, that's how I heard about it. And I don't know how I was selected, or if I was just one of the only ones who raised my hand. But looking back on it, it was a pretty diverse group.
Yeah.
There were like single people with no kids, married people with no kids, married, couple with kids, diversity and
Ethnicity and all that
ethnicity.
background.
We had a senior in the group, like there were.
So it's hard to reach.
yeah, some parks have pulled from like community associations and things like that are in there.
This is hard. You have to have a certain number when you apply, proving that it's very. Number to agree to move forward.
great reason to have work days. It's because, I mean, Christina's right. I think the people that are involved remain involved. So I think that would be another thing if you're interested to get to know, and then also, to reach out. And sometimes we've even been asked, like, I can't remember
have
which
any-
divisioning it was, but they even asked us, hey, we're a little bit short. Do y'all know anybody? Because we get customer feedback all the time. So we've even provided some people just so we know from the, because we hear just from random citizens and we're like, oh yeah, they live in this area near this park. Maybe they would be interested in.
Mhm.
So sometimes we can even be a resource, to kind of build that steering committee. I don't think we have anybody from W.D. Thompson or Delano on the call
Don't,
tonight because
no.
those were the most
Yeah.
recent visionings that we did. Yeah.
This is National Sasha, and I just want to say, even for me, being new in my position, one of the things that I do is I speak to everybody. I don't care if you're in your car, I don't care what the circumstance may look like, I speak to everybody and share my contact information with them. And that way I know I'm canvassing everything and everyone.
Not
So-
missing anybody.
My neighborhood actually has a Facebook page of our own, or Facebook group. So that's how I get information out to my community. So, maybe.
Yeah,
start a
absolutely.
Facebook page for your park. And.
next
and
door.
get-
Or next door, there you go.
get on next door. Just-
Yeah.
like that. It works pretty good, and that way you're not out passing out flyers for weekends.
Well, some things work differently.
Yeah,
Sure,
I would say
sure.
Yes.
Other things. People in the park, if somebody's walking their dog, I'll say, did you have a chance to do the whole trail? Did you see anything that you? I mean, you gotta act, because they're users. So,
I think we got a bunch of information from you on the Trails Master Plan when you posted on Nextdoor, actually, Rochelle. Thank you for that, but.
Yeah, Rochelle,
Yeah.
she knows, she
Well.
is our eyes and ears. Like I mean, that's your presence. And Natasha, like, because you're a, hey, who are you? Because you love that park. And I think any visitor there, your presence is so well known. So yeah, I think because you're right, the social media for you is not the same
Mhm.
face-to-face interaction. So it's a different dynamic.
So this is Eric of Sugar Creek, and I have no social media presence whatsoever. Still be a chief. So we, like everybody else, I would love to just have one person to like, just have, but it doesn't happen with the friends. So at Sugar Creek, we have multiple people that do multiple things. We have somebody that does a website. I do the email, I'm guilty, I've been a little lax with that. With the email distribution list, that's what I do. We have, like Rochelle, we have older people and just want to deal with the email. Okay, that's it. We have people that do the Facebook and the Instagram and the TikTok. We have a group meet, thingy as well. And so I am a firm believer, even though I have no social media presence, I am a believer of by any means necessary. That means different people do different things, and we have kind of refined that at Sugar Creek. They know I'm gonna email, they know person A is gonna do the group meet, somebody else is gonna do the Facebook. So you can look at it from that standpoint as well, in terms of not just for the visioning process, but however you're communicating.
not one person has to do it all. I find that
So
it really helps.
And I'd say two more questions because we're a little bit over already, but go ahead.
So this is Amy Taylor. Y'all mentioned a master plan a few times. It is, and I'm not talking about the trails plan.
Mhm.
Just,
The overall Parks Master Plan.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
where can we see that? Is there?
On the
Yeah,
website.
it's on our website.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cause I'm not sure that I mean, you said we have a master plan, but we don't know about it. Nobody's talked to us about
I
it.
think there's a lot of misinformation, but we would be more than happy to provide the master plan, but there was, same process, like a master plan and visioning are the same, basically. In City of Atlanta, there's a little bit of a difference, but in DeKalb, we do them, they're the same. So the master plan, we did that internally, with, the consultant WSP did that because we hire, A&E landscape people, because again, we want it to be no influence. We want you to connect with them. So that was performed and all of that is online. And and the other thing I was going to mention too, because we press release, even if it's a visioning through private press release. So all of those meetings were held publicly, and the concepts were created and it went through the same process, but it's all online.
I have your email. I'm happy to send all that to you. I have your email. I can send all that to you.
Yes, it was at the height of COVID. No, one of them was in person. Actually,
There
they did
was
do
an
one
in-person
public
one.
meeting
Yeah,
in
which we
person.
had.
Yes.
It was like in 2019 and 2020, and you didn't move there until. Yeah, so you might not have gotten in on
Mm.
visioning.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
And we did.
there's been a lot. that's
Yeah, which is, I think there's been a
so-
lot of miscommunication, and then I know we did mailers, because we actually do the mailers, just long history there, but yeah, but it went through the same process.
So if that master plan is, because our park isn't developed. If that master plan doesn't merge with our ideas as they are today, can we dispute that master plan? Can we adjust that master plan?
So,
Is that- Is that?
yeah, so because it's very recent and there was so much heavy community involvement, it would be, I mean, that would just be challenging for us. Because we did engage the community and we did the normal process, we did the typical process. So I think we would have to have, something totally to overwhelm it the other way, but there wasn't, I mean, it just followed the typical process and we did it was one of the most well-attended meetings, those meetings. We have all that information of who attended. So and we say that all the time. That's why we do it the way we do it, because we don't want it to be influenced by anything other than the community that surrounds the park, right? Okay. That's part of park security.
Yep, we'll talk about
We're gonna
those.
Talk about that, because I think, again, it's just so, sometimes, because that's why we want you to hear directly from us. So I think what the purpose of Park Patrol is, what responsibilities, what they can do, what they can't do, when to call 911, when to call us. I think that needs to be, and then sort of
Yeah.
the whole unsheltered is part of that conversation, because there's just so much with park hours. What arrests can happen, who can make those arrests, who do I think you need to hear that directly from us, because that's just something we get asked all the time. And really, these meetings were based on just, again, we want to spend the time with you, and Caleb, now we have the time to do that, and we want to make sure that you're getting the correct information out, because we rely on you guys to sort of spread the word. We can't reach 759,000 residents. It's going to be impossible. So I think having you guys reconnecting, reactivating, you're hearing it directly from us, ask those questions, and then, we want you just to go spread the word, new groups popping up so that we can all just kind of move forward together. That's the whole goal of this.
Absolutely.
Some good news to wrap up, and this is, in relation to Park Pride in DeKalb County, and bragging on DeKalb County. Last year, Glenn and I were both nominated and won as, Georgia Parks and Recreation Association Volunteers of the Year.
We love our help.
Not for something like that, but it was nice to get it. It was nice.
And I think, can I say something too? It was touching, like, because Torrance helped me, right, Gwen's,
Mhm.
and then to read what we are seeing, y'all, that was a beautiful thing, I think, for us as a department, because
Absolutely.
you're right, we all get busy, don't slow down. But like when Torrance sent, because we each had picked and nominated some people, just, and it was a beautiful thing to see how much, staff and y'all connect and what we can do together. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I think.
We appreciate you.
George had mentioned that Barbara and Gwen also was class of the Park Pride. Both.
Yeah.
Curtis too.
I was accepted to the 2025 Georgia Beloved Now.
Wow, awesome.
And Caleb, this is Barbara. Also, we should congratulate Priscilla Davenport because she is receiving Park Pride's Inspirational Award for 2025.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up, Ms. Mobley. Yeah. absolutely.
Ben and I are former inspirations.
So, yeah, a lot of love in this room.
Ways to keep you guys motivated. I mean, you put in a lot of work, so just
Yes.
something maybe help us even figure out how to recognize y'all even more.
And I know-
Right, and we don't want you to think that we've forgotten about you.
Also, Barbara, this is Gwen, part of
Yes.
the inaugural Park Stewardship Academy.
PSA, yep.
Well, thank you all for your time.
Yeah, thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. And I hope this is just the start of, us connecting a bit more than we have and really, pushing your programs forward in your parks, making them
Tell your
what
friends,
you want them to be.
tell your friends they can be part of the
Yes, exactly. But
website, and then if you want, we can email the presentation.
Yeah, I'll email it to everyone.
Recording.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
And we'll tweak it, so we did have a good turnout.
We
thinking
did.
One way or the other, maybe the next time, but
Well, I mean, the hybrid's kind of nice. We'll see. And I'll reach out for your feedback too as well. So, we can tweak this. But thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody online for joining.
You're welcome.
Oh, maybe